Welcome once again to Let's Talk Marriage. This is Pastor Larry coming to you this Wednesday afternoon with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. We're going to get right on into our session on today. Hope everyone is doing well. If you woke up this morning, you are doing well. All right. We're going to get right into our session once again. All right. Today we're going to be asking the question, how well do you know your spouse? I'm going to go over some questions I found in an article. It's called Better Help. It's a article on relationships, and what it says here is it starts out saying, according to several different studies, healthy relationships are essential for positive mental health. Connecting with your partner through a fun question game can be one way to feel intimate, cared about, and loved. Which is, I totally agree with this. Because too many times with this society, we might rush into relationships or even rush into a marriage just because someone told you that that person was for you does not mean that they were necessarily for you. And that's when you have a bunch of problems starting off in a marriage. So you have to know people before you get into a relationship, because marriage is for a lifetime. I even heard one of the prominent ministers say that you even should go as far as knowing their social security number, their credit history, and because that proves, because if you marry someone that has a bad credit or bad credit history or don't like to pay bills, guess what? When you get married, you're going to have the same issues. So it's good to know each other, and every once in a while it's good to take some of these tests, just, between you and your spouse, just to, in your time that you're just sitting around talking or chatting, you could ask some of these questions. They have quite a few on here. I'm not going to get through all of them, but I'm going to address some of them. There are a few questions that can be included in when you ask those questions. Here's one of them here. What's my biggest dream, or what is your spouse's biggest dream? Have you ever heard your spouse talking about something that they were looking forward to, or something that they planned for, or something that they just wanted to do before they met you? What was their dream? How they go about doing it? Was it something involving their career, or something involving a habit that they might have, or not necessarily a habit, but a hobby? That's what I meant to say. A hobby that they might have, that they might want to take it to another level. Yeah, here's another one here, which it should be easy. Everybody should get this one. What's your spouse's favorite color? Usually easy for women to answer that, or men to answer that question regarding their wife. Most men know what color their wives like and what color that they don't. And sometimes women don't know, because men generally don't have a favorite color. It's just that they have a color that they tend not to wear. All right. What goals do I want to reach this year? Do you have any? Did you know the answer to that question, or have you asked your spouse that question? What goals you want to reach this year? What are your plans for this year, for this summer? Because sometimes you can sit down and plan out some, a vacation or something, or just plan out a surprise for your spouse. There's several different things you can do as far as knowing what your wife, because if you give her a surprise, you have to know exactly what she wants, what she likes, what she needs, and that way you'll fulfill something that she's been dreaming of. That's why you need to know what her biggest dream is. That way you can help out with her. Now here's number 4. What did I want to be as a kid? What did your spouse want to be as a kid? I remember my wife telling me several times what she always wanted to do as a child. And most of us are fortunate, or some of us are fortunate enough to actually achieve what we plan on doing or wanted to be as a child. I remember my wife telling me several times that when she was a kid, she always wanted to be an accountant. She always liked numbers, and that's what she became, an accountant. Which is a blessing in itself to actually achieve something that you dream about. And she actually achieved her goal as her dream as a child, or something that she wanted to be as a child. What's your favorite activity to do with your spouse? What's the favorite activity you like to do with your spouse? Do you like to go shopping with them? Do you like to go travel with them? Or do you like just going to the movies with them? There's certain things that you should know that your spouse like to do. My wife and I, we one of our favorite things we like to do, we like to travel, go different places, and things like that. We also like to go out to dinner, which everybody likes to go out to dinner. That's one of our favorite things. But do you know what your spouse's favorite thing is? And have you ever tried to make sure that... one thing I can say about my wife, she always tend to listen, when you're talking. That's why during the session, we always mention about listening, being a good listener or excellent listener. And one thing I can say, my wife is a pretty good listener. She'll listen to something I might say that I wanted. I could have said it, months or even years ago. And whenever she get the opportunity to get that thing, she would always make sure that I have it, and I really appreciate that. And I try to do the same with her. But then a lot of times she'll say, "Oh, I don't need that. No, I don't want nothing." Be careful when you hear your spouse say, "Oh, I don't want nothing." Listen to what's behind that or in front of that, and you can act on that. Because sometimes they might say that they don't want nothing, and it's something that they really want, or they don't feel like being bothersome or a hindrance. So they might not. They might tell you that they don't want anything. Okay, here's another one. Where was I born? That's a given. If you don't know where your spouse was born, shame on you.
Sure, I understand.
Oh, there's my watch. You should know where your spouse was born. My wife was born in the South, so I know exactly where she was born, and she knows exactly where I was born. Here's another one. Some of these questions are pretty easy. Which of my siblings is my favorite? Especially if your spouse or yourself come from a big family, you always have not necessarily a favorite sibling, but a go-to sibling. You always have that sibling that you can always go to, or the one that you can always depend on. Not necessarily mean that they're your favorite. They're just the one that's more dependable. And I know in our family, we had a small family, my mother and I, my brother and I. But my mother always knew that which one of her sons that was more dependable. It wasn't necessarily that she favored one over the other. It's just that one was more. And that's in any family. A small family, a large family, you always have those siblings that you can depend on, and the ones that you don't want to put a lot of pressure on them. And my mom knew which one of us, between my brother and I, which one of us was more dependable. So she would generally ask me to do things, and sometimes I'd be like, "Oh, why she asking me to do this? Why can't she get my brother to do it?" and the same thing in my wife's family. Her mom, dad, they know which one of their siblings that's more dependable. The one that has the bigger heart. And so you have to go by that. It's not necessarily the favorite is the one that you can depend on more. Okay, here's another one. What was our favorite trip that we've taken together? Yeah, that should be an easy one, especially if you go to certain places, because if it's your favorite trip, you tend to go there more often than less. And we have a favorite spot that we usually go to on our vacations. We either go to Florida or we either go to California, depending on what's going on that time of year. But those are usually our favorite destinations. We still have a lot of trips to plan that we have not, or places that we have not been to, but there's quite a few that we have been to. And our favorite is usually tropical trips. All right, here's another one. What would I talk to if everything in my life went wrong? Who would I talk to? Now, you should always know who your wife would talk to, if something is bothering her other than yourself. Let's just put it that way. I always know who my wife would always talk to. If she's, if something is really bothering her and it's something that if I'm not around, or she something she don't want to talk to me about, but it's something else regarding something, something that doesn't concern me, that that might be bothering her, and she has that go-to person that she would talk to, and I always know who that is, and she usually tell me that she talked to so and so, and like that, and I usually have a person that I usually talk to, go-to person. We all should have a go-to person. You go to, of course you go to the Lord in prayer, but you always should have that friend that you can talk to. Not necessarily about, it doesn't always have to be anything serious. It could be just something that you're thinking about, and, or something that happened in between the both of you in the past, and you're just talking about this general conversation. All right, here's it moving along here. What 3 items would I take if we were stranded on an island? If my wife and I were stranded on an island, what 3 things would we take? What 3 things would you take? Or what 3 things you and your spouse would take if you were stranded somewhere? Not necessarily on an island. If you were stranded somewhere, what would the 3 things you would want to have? What would the 3 things be? That's a good question, because you can name a lot of different things. And if you, of course, if you were stranded on an island, money wouldn't be one. Because what are you going to do with money if you're stranded on an island? So that wouldn't be one. So that's a good question to ask someone in a general conversation. Okay, here's another one. Who in my family do I connect with the most? You always have a family member that you connect with, and usually that's the one that has more in common with you. Sometimes it could even be a close sibling, like sister or brother, or sometimes it could be a cousin or something. But you always have that sibling or family member that you connect with. A lot of times they have a lot in common with you. Like sometimes some of my cousins that are, because I'm in the ministry, a lot of my cousins that are in the ministry, I tend to connect with them a lot, because they're in the ministry. You have something in common there. Okay, here's another one. How do you think I talk about you to my friends? How do you think your spouse talk about you to your friends? What are they saying to your friends about you? Is it good things, or is it complaints? Or is it praise reports? Or are they just saying, oh, he's just such a wonderful husband, he's so thoughtful? Or is it, oh, you get on my nerve. Man, I had to get out of that house. Or do you find yourself trying to get away from your wife because when you're both together, you love each other, but you irritate each other? I don't have that problem, because my wife and I, we get along really, really well. When you get along really well, that cuts down on a lot of arguments. That cuts down on a lot of discord in the family. We have our serious conversations, and we have our conversations that we don't necessarily agree upon, but we learn to agree to disagree. So that cuts down on a lot of the argument, because sometimes if you not getting along with your spouse, you might have something negative to say to that friend, that go-to friend that you have about your spouse. But if you're getting along with your spouse, when you talk to your go-to friend or your friend about your spouse, it's always going to be good things that you say about your spouse. So whenever something comes up and you go and try to complain about them, they'll be like, no, that's not like him. They'll say that in a minute because you've built up that thing about your husband that your close friends always know about him, and they, when they come around, they know that their friend is being treated right because they see the smile in their friend. They see how she is, and they see how they interact with each other. They see the chemistry there. There's a whole lot of couples that don't have any chemistry, and if you don't have any chemistry in your marriage, that's a total different subject. We're going to be talking about that on our next segment. Come on, we're going to be talking about that. Yeah, I'm not sure I understand either. But we're going to be talking about on our next segment about having chemistry in our relationships, because you have to get along in order for your marriage to be successful. And sometimes we, especially with this day and age, you tend to be going in one direction, going in the other direction. But you, even though you might be going in different directions, you still should be on the same path. Somebody tell, well, how do you do that? Because you come together after you go in different directions, you come back together on the same path. And you should always be on the same path in your marriage. And if you don't have that chemistry, you're not going to be on the same path. All right, here's one more. We're going to do one more here. What are your friends' opinion of you? What do your friends think of you? Do they think that you're a generous person? Do they think you're a pain? Do they think you're irritating? You have to wonder that by the company that you keep. Sometimes people have a different opinion of you than what you have of yourself. So you have to make sure that we are on our, how they used to say back in school, on your best behaviors. When you go into public, you have to make sure that you have a certain persona, that you're, just a easygoing person, a person that's easy to get along with, a person that's not argumentative. Because you have so many different people that are argumentative. They get into arguments over any little thing, a sports game, politics, and sometimes some subjects you just have to just leave alone. Even within your marriage, there's some subjects you just have to leave alone. If you can't stand your spouse's relatives or cousins or something, you don't want to get in something where you start talking about them, because, that's their relatives. You can't very well do that. So you have to be careful in how you word things, how you make phrases, how you, it's just a matter of showing respect toward her family, as well as she showing respect toward your family. So these are some questions that you can sit down and ask your wife, ask your spouse. You could also ask your spouse about religion, where they stand. You should already know that, but sometimes you could ask them on certain occasions what they think about something in the Bible, or something that you might have studied, or something in Sunday school, or even a message that was delivered on that Sunday. You can sit down and discuss that and ask questions about it. Because the more you know about your spouse, the better off you'll be, the more you'll get along. We used to have a saying that sometimes my wife can answer a question before I ask it. If when you're that close, you know each other. And, like my wife knows what I don't like to eat. I know what she doesn't like to eat. And, and I know what her favorite color is, And I know what she would wear. I know what she wouldn't wear, and things like that. I know what type of vehicle she likes. I just know everything about her. And I'm sure she knows everything about me as well, because, after 30-some years, I would think so. But there's some people that, just rush into a marriage. And again, I always say that on here. Don't let anyone rush you into marrying someone that you're not ready for. If you're not ready for it, don't take that step. Let me repeat that. If you're not ready for marriage, don't take that step. Because if you take that step when you're not ready, it's going to come back to haunt you. You're not ready for, because you have to have that conversation before you walk down the aisle. Do you want kids? Because some people don't want children. And if one party don't want children and the other one want children, the other one don't want children, you have to make sure that is known before you get married. Don't just marry someone just because somebody says, "Oh, y'all look good together." That doesn't mean just because you look good together. It might be the outfits you have on. It could be why you look good together that particular day. And if you are not looking good together, sometimes you cannot look good together, and that's the perfect person for you. So we have to make sure that we know each other. Make sure you ask those questions. Oh, my goodness. So many people get into relationships not knowing where their person came from. They not knowing where their background is. And make sure you know these people, because you're building a lasting relationship with them. And you're going on a journey together, and you have to be on one accord. And if you don't know each other, you're not going to be on one accord. This is Pastor Larry. I'm going to be signing off. Now, remember, next week we're going to be talking about chemistry between marriages or between couples. This is Pastor Larry. We're going to be signing off once again with Let's Talk Marriage. How well do you know your spouse? All right. Any music that you hear on this program is from an app called Whoop Triggers Plus. It's a very good app for those of you that have churches and can't afford musicians or don't have musicians. Whoop Triggers Plus. Look it up on Android. That's the other app I could never remember. It's out there on the Android app or on the Apple app. So either one of those, and it's called Whoop Triggers Plus. So look it up. This is Pastor Larry. Until we meet again with Let's Talk Marriage.